There are television shows that come and go, and then there are those rare creations that leave a permanent mark, not just on the industry, but on the hearts of the audiences who grow up with them. Everybody Loves Raymond is one such show. It wasn't just a sitcom, it was a reflection of family life, loud, flawed, hilarious, and impossibly relatable. And now, 30 years later, the cast returned for a moment that fans never expected. A reunion so emotional and heartfelt that stepping back onto the recreated set felt like stepping into a time machine. The studio was silent as the lights came up. The set, carefully rebuilt to look just as it did decades ago, stood waiting. And as the cast of Everybody Loves Raymond entered, the emotions hit immediately. They weren't just walking onto a set, they were walking back into a memory. One cast member looked around and said that it felt a little spooky being there again. Another joked that it still felt like Romano didn't know what to do and the rest of them were carrying him. Those kinds of comments weren't scripted. They were the same quick humor that carried the show for 9 seasons. This wasn't a reboot. It wasn't a revival. There were no new episodes being filmed. Instead, this was something more powerful, a reunion. For the first time in years, the full cast, along with show creator Phil Rosenthal, sat on the recreated set of the Barone family home for 3 hours, sharing stories, memories, jokes, and moments the audience never saw. And this reunion, airing on CBS, felt less like a television special and more like a family sitting around the living room, catching up after decades apart. One of the most striking transformations during the reunion involved the children who grew up on the show. Madeline Sweeten, who played the eldest child in the Barone household, is now 34. She is no longer the little girl audiences saw in every episode. She has built a life of her own, designing furniture and becoming a mother to her own 7-month-old child named River. During the reunion, she admitted that the moment she walked out on the rebuilt set, she immediately became emotional, and when Patricia Heaton hugged her, she was overwhelmed. Years had passed, but the love between the cast felt untouched by time. Sullivan Sweeten, once one of the adorable twins on the show, is now 30. His path was very different. After the heartbreaking loss of his twin brother, who was also on Everybody Loves Raymond, he stepped away from acting and quietly moved into a life off-screen. His presence at the reunion was a reminder of how deeply this show affected the lives of real families, not just the fictional one on television. The reunion was filled with moments just like that, beautiful, personal, and meaningful. The cast spoke about their experience on the show, reflecting on how they changed over the years. One cast member mentioned how strange it was to think about how young they were when the show started. "We were babies," they said. That comment wasn't just about age, it was about everything the cast learned, how they developed as actors, how their relationships evolved, and how they carried the lessons of the show into their real lives. But it wasn't all serious. There was plenty of the same rapid-fire humor that made Everybody Loves Raymond a classic. For instance, one actor pulled out a jacket they had worn in the episode titled Jazz Records. They told the group that they had kept it in a closet all these years. Others laughed and admitted that they too had pieces of wardrobe tucked away at home. These weren't props, they were pieces of their lives, and some memories were hilariously unexpected. One of the long-running jokes during the reunion was about Brad Garrett and his repeated tendency to accidentally crash into the set. According to the stories shared on set, he managed to collide with the living room walls more than 25 times during the 9-season run. Even decades later, the cast still teased him about it. That kind of joking, warm, playful, and rooted in years of working together was a huge part of what made the show feel so genuine. Underneath the laughter and nostalgia was a powerful message about why the show worked. According to the cast, Everybody Loves Raymond didn't succeed because the characters were perfect. In fact, it was the complete opposite. The Barone family argued, interrupted each other, misunderstood each other, and annoyed each other in every episode. And yet, they loved each other anyway. The show captured the idea that families are messy. They don't have all their ducks in a row. They make mistakes. They embarrass one another. And they get through it not by pretending everything is perfect, but by laughing together. One cast member explained it perfectly. When audiences watched the show, they didn't just laugh at the characters. They laughed at themselves. They recognized their own mothers, fathers, siblings, and spouses in the characters on screen. And being able to laugh at your own life, your own frustrations, flaws, and imperfections is often the thing that helps you survive the stress of everyday living. That philosophy didn't just make the show successful, it made it meaningful. During the reunion, the cast also talked about how the show mirrored their personal lives. One actor shared that they would leave their own hectic household, complete with 2 small children, and then arrive on set to join another hectic household filled with grown-up children. That feeling of chaos was familiar, and maybe that's why the set felt so much like home. Ray Romano also became a topic of discussion. In the early years of the show, he often said he felt unsure about his acting. He joked that he didn't know what he was doing and sometimes the cast had to carry him. But over the years, he grew into the central figure of the show. Even now, decades later, his dry humor is exactly the same. At the reunion, he said, "The show is still going well and it's still fun. I can't complain, which is what I'm complaining about because I like to have things to complain about." That perfectly summed up the kind of honesty and self-awareness that fans always loved about him. As the reunion special continued, the cast promised that viewers were in for a treat. They weren't just sitting around reminiscing politely, they were sharing the real stories. The jokes, the mistakes, the pranks, and even the occasional moments of tension backstage. And one thing fans could absolutely count on was Brad Garrett being bleeped repeatedly. In fact, the cast joked that audiences would see him censored at least 10 different times during the special. Even after all these years, some habits never change. There were also jokes about human resources, workplace behavior, and the kind of on-set humor that probably wouldn't fly in today's corporate climate. But it was never mean-spirited. It was the same affectionate teasing that audiences saw between the characters each week. At one point, a cast member joked that they couldn't quite put their finger on what emotion they were feeling. Another immediately responded that someone else would put a finger on it for $50 extra, and the entire room exploded into laughter. Someone mockingly walked off to call HR. These moments made it clear that the chemistry the cast shared on screen wasn't an act, it was real. But beyond the jokes, there was a strong emotional undercurrent in the reunion. 30 years is a long time. People change. Some cast members started the show single and ended it with children of their own. Others endured personal tragedy, careers shifted, lives evolved, and yet when they stepped onto the set, the years melted away. One of the actors described it as time travel. The same walls, the same furniture, the same energy, the same kitchen table that hosted years of arguments, confessions, and awkward conversations. The same living room where Deborah Barone and Marie Barone exchanged sharp comedic battles that never failed to leave audiences in tears of laughter. It was all there again, exactly as fans remembered it. That sense of timelessness is what makes Everybody Loves Raymond special. It wasn't about plot twists, drama, or flashy production. It was about everyday life. Parents interfering in their children's marriages, siblings competing for attention, husbands trying to avoid uncomfortable conversations, wives trying to balance motherhood, identity, and sanity, families struggling, loving, and learning how to live together. And for viewers, the show became a safe place. A familiar place, a place where they could turn on the TV after a long day and think, "It's not just me." Other families are like this too. The Barones became everyone's family. As the reunion came to a close, the cast looked around the set quietly. There was gratitude. There was love, there was reflection. They understood that this wasn't just a gathering. It was a celebration of something much bigger. A celebration of a show that shaped their careers, shaped their friendships, and shaped the lives of millions of viewers around the world. 30 years have passed since Everybody Loves Raymond first entered American households. But even today, new generations are discovering the show on reruns and streaming platforms. And in those living rooms, just like decades ago, families sit together and laugh. They recognize themselves in Ray, in Deborah, in Robert, in Marie, and in Frank. They see the dysfunction, the chaos, the affection, and the heart, and they feel understood. It's rare for a show to survive the passage of time. Rarer still for it to feel alive, unchanged, and relevant 3 decades later. But Everybody Loves Raymond does, because at its core, it isn't a show about perfect people. It's a show about real people, people trying, failing, arguing, and loving all at once. The reunion brought that spirit back to life. It reminded the cast of who they were. It reminded audiences of why they laughed, and it proved that some families, whether fictional or real, never truly go away. They stay in the heart, waiting for the moment when the door opens, the lights come up, and the memories pour back in. And just like that, 30 years later, the Barone family is still home.